They threw a party on my boat. Not beside it, not near it. Right on top of my deck, sprawled out on my cushions, popping open my father's vintage wine like this was some kind of public festival. Strangers toasting community as if I was invisible, like I was supposed to be grateful for the honor of having my own home invaded. I know what I did next might sound extreme, but I'll tell you this. When people start treating your hard-won peace like a free-for-all, you get creative. You start thinking in ways you never imagined, and honestly, sometimes the tide's the only judge that matters. But I guess before I get too far ahead, I should probably introduce myself. I'm Dylan. I'm 38. I build houses for a living. But my true love's always been boats. I got that from my dad. I never worked for a fancy yacht builder or anything like that. I just spent years with sawdust in my hair, learning the trade by hand the way my grandfather did. When I was 25, I inherited this tiny stretch of waterfront, just a shoebox house and a dock, but that dock was everything to me. I put 3 years into building my dream boat every spare minute. That's how Graceful One came to life, a modest 28-footer teak decks, custom details everywhere. The kind of boat where every screw's in the right place because you turned it yourself. Dad helped me with the wine cabinet below deck back when his hands were still steady enough for fine work. A proper boat's got a proper place for good wine, he said, lining up the shelves, checking the temperature controls, acting like he was prepping for a moon landing. He donated 3 bottles from his private stash, 1960s reds he'd saved for special days. "These'll be here when you need them most," he said. I believed him, and that cabinet still feels like his heart beats somewhere inside the hull. My world was simple. Sunrise coffee on the deck, the marina quiet, the air salty and still. Most of my neighbors were retirees who loved their privacy, folks who waved but didn't overstay. The kind of place where if you needed help hauling your dock lines, you'd get it, but nobody came poking around unless you asked. It was paradise, and I knew it. Or maybe I just hoped it would last. Everything changed the day the Morrison place next door sold. New owners, 2 sisters, Roxanne and Heather. I remember the moving truck Roxanne out front with a clipboard, Heather trailing behind like a shadow. They weren't sightseeing, they were taking inventory. It was clear from the first handshake Roxanne introduced herself as the new president of our neighborhood association, a title I didn't even know existed. She smiled, but there was something wolfish in it. You know, keeping a boat this beautiful all to yourself feels a little selfish, don't you think? She said, voice honey sweet. We should talk about community sharing opportunities. Let me tell you, there's nothing quite as surreal as someone suggesting you share the one thing you've built with your own 2 hands. I tried to be polite, said it was private property, family boat. Nothing personal. Roxanne's smile just got tighter, like I'd failed some secret test. She introduced Heather as her vice president. I kid you not, standing there like this was a corporate takeover instead of a cul-de-sac. They kept talking about shared vision, about community experiences, about how I'd want to reconsider. It stopped being friendly in about 2 seconds flat. From that day on, things got weird. Subtle at first, notes in the mailbox about voluntary dock access, rumors spreading that I was anti-community. And then came the Saturday that changed everything. I was gone 2 hours running to the hardware store for a handful of bolts. When I came home, I heard music. At first, I figured it was someone's backyard party. But as I rounded my house, the truth hit me like a cold wave. There were 8 strangers on my boat, drinks in hand, dancing on the deck, using my stuff like it was a rental. Roxanne was there, of course, holding court like she owned the place. When she saw me, she actually waved. "You should thank me. You're the face of unity now. Ever felt your blood boil so hard you thought your skin might split?" That was me standing there watching some guy live stream the whole thing as if I'd signed off on this circus. I tried to keep it together, asked them to leave Roxanne, just cut me off, still smiling like she was doing me a favor. Nobody moved. I called the cops not to escalate, but because what else do you do when reason leaves the room? The officer showed up, shrugged, said it was a civil dispute, suggested we work it out. Roxanne turned on the charm, told him she was just fostering community. When he left, she looked at me and whispered, "You'll learn to be more neighborly, one way or another." I tried the official channels next, filed a complaint with this so-called association. Turns out they had bylaws, a board procedures, the works. I put together a report, photos and all. 48 hours later, I got a reply, complaint denied. They cited community access policies, accused me of lacking spirit. My own association. That's when I realized I was up against something bigger than just a nosy neighbor. I was staring down the barrel of a rigged game. You know what I mean? It's like the rules don't apply when the wrong people have the megaphone. So I switched it up, started playing the beaten man, dragging my feet around the dock, letting my boat look a little neglected. I let Mrs. Peterson overhear that I was thinking of selling the boat. Within a week, Roxanne and Heather were celebrating like they'd conquered the Alamo. I overheard them planning a victory party, caterers, a DJ, the works. They thought they'd broken me, and honestly, maybe I was broken. But there's a difference between being beaten and playing dead. The week of their big event, I swapped out the dock line for one that looked sturdy but was designed to snap under just the right stress. I scoped the currents, checked the tides, made sure everything was perfectly safe, but set for a little adventure. Saturday came, and I watched from my kitchen window as cars filled my driveway. By 5, there were 15 people on Graceful One, eating, drinking, and my heart stopped when I saw this popping open my father's '67 Bordeaux. The bottle I'd saved for the most important day of my life being guzzled from plastic cups by people who didn't know its value. Roxanne stood up on my bow and made a speech about teaching selfish neighbors to share. I stared at her, my fist shaking, until I finally did what I'd come to do. I cut the rope. The boat started drifting slow and steady out into the bay, carried by the tide and the breeze just as I'd planned. For a few minutes, nobody noticed. They kept partying, oblivious. Then one of them looked back and realized the dock was shrinking. Panic spread, and soon Roxanne was screaming, "Bring us back!" But all I did was walk to the end of the dock and call out, "You wanted open access? Hope you enjoy open water." The panic was almost comical. Phones in the air, yelling into spotty service, demanding someone come get them. What they didn't know was I'd disconnected the radio just for today. The Coast Guard got a call eventually and came out, but not before everyone had plenty of time to reflect on what community really meant. I caught every moment on camera, Roxanne blaming Heather, throwing Roxanne under the bus. "You always do this. You think charm makes crime?" "Okay?" her voice echoing across the water. The rescue wasn't quick or cheap. The Coast Guard cited them for unauthorized use, and when the local news picked up the story, it became the meme of the summer. When you crash the party, but the party crashes you back. The real kicker. The current took them to the fanciest marina in the region, right in the middle of the International Boat Show, with TV crews filming their sunburned, frantic arrival. Emergency docking fees, rescue cost fines, they got the bill, and the humiliation in front of half the yachting community. By the end of the month, Roxanne and Heather quietly stepped down from their leadership. The new board apologized, changed the bylaws, and neighbors I'd never spoken to started stopping me at the marina just to shake my hand. Graceful One is mine again. The wine cabinet is still missing a bottle, but the story I got in exchange, well, it's worth more than any Bordeaux. So here's my question for you. Did I cross a line, or did I just let the tide teach a lesson? No committee ever could. Sometimes justice isn't loud. It just lets people drift until they realize exactly where they belong. If you've got a story like this or an opinion about what's right and what's fair, leave it below. Let's hear what you think about community justice and just how far is too far. Thanks for sticking around for this wild ride. Catch you next time.